Young Nico prepares to record himself playing his guitar while a storm brews outside. The news report on the fall of the Berlin Wall as the year is 1989. He cuts off the broadcast and begins to sing, but shortly after, his mother interrupts his recording to alert him that she's off to work. She enters her car to find a cassette with a note in it from her son. She plays the tape of Nico singing as she pulls off. Back inside, the young lad ends his recording session when he overhears commotion from his neighbor's house. He looks out of his window to see Prieto and his wife Hilda having a physical altercation. Nico decides to sneak into the now eerily quiet house. While he wanders inside, he admires a lovely picture of the couple before proceeding. Nico turns the corner and gasps as he sees Hilda's lifeless, bloodied body on the floor. He rushes over and calls to her, hoping she's still alive, but gets no response. His neck snaps up when he hears heavy footsteps, only to find Prieto descending the stairs holding a knife. Nico does what most people don't in these situations, and 10-toes himself out of there. He stumbles to the floor while checking his shoulder as Prieto follows and calls for him to wait. As Nico crosses the road, a van knocks him down. Prieto comes out with the knife still in his hand as the driver shouts for help. Others start to come out while Nico bleeds out from his head. The husband drops the murder weapon as he sinks onto the ground in disbelief. Some time has passed since that incident, and Vera wakes up next to her daughter in their new home, which happens to be the one Nico and his mother stayed in the past. She gets a call from her husband David, who alerts her that he's back from his business trip, but he has to go straight to work for some important meetings. Meanwhile, across the road, Ater prepares to leave for work. His mom Clara looks at the weather and is worried about how the upcoming storm seems similar to the one that happened years back. Ater dismisses her rambling as he says his goodbyes. Vera also prepares to leave with her daughter, so she asks the moving men to leave the keys with the neighbors across the road when they are done. Ator beeps to get her attention, and they have a very friendly conversation where she invites him and his mother for dinner. Vera later makes her way to work where her role is a theater assistant at a hospital. While she prepares for surgery, the weather broadcast warns that the storm is a repeat of the one that hit in 1989. She comments on her colleagues Monica's short vacation, but the woman quickly changes the subject and asks how she's finding her new house. After her shift, she goes to pick up her daughter, and when they get home, she surprises the kid with a swing she had installed. As the two play, they notice the storm is brewing, so they make their way inside, where Vera sneaks up on her husband who's unpacking. She comes across an old picture of him and his ex-girlfriend, so David starts to tease her for being jealous. They then go to clear out a storage area and find Nico's old equipments to their amazement, but as they touch it, the light flickers. The family later set it up to watch one of the tapes. David gives some trivia that the one they are currently viewing was recorded on the same day, but in 1989. It happens to be the one Nico recorded just before the incident. He removes it when it ends and sits back with his family, but the light flickers again as the thunder strikes. Suddenly, the TV comes back on again, playing the news broadcast from 1989. They look on spooked out as there is no tape in the player and networks don't broadcast in analog anymore. The couple thinks nothing of it and later hosts their neighbors for dinner. It is revealed that Ator and Vera were together in the past as he jokes around about David coming in and stealing her away from him, but we know that he's salty about that one. Talk moves to the tapes that they found of Nico, so Ator discloses that they were good friends before informing them of the circumstances that led to his death. Prieto got arrested for the murder of his wife as a result. His mother starts to get uncomfortable about the topic and uses the little girl as an excuse to get him to stop. After dinner, the kid gets scared by the story and the weather as Vera puts her to bed, but she assures her that everything will be fine. She then joins David, who's looking at the Nico Prieto case. He informs Vera that Prieto confessed that he planned to hide his wife's body under his animal processing plant if he wasn't caught first. From his research, he finds out that the guy took it upon himself to climb the stairs to the afterlife months after being jailed. She tries to change the subject while sorting out the dirty laundry, but he carries on in an attempt to understand why someone would do such a thing. Things get intense when she finds some matches in his pants. She confronts him for smoking again, but he matches her energy for a moment before pretending to be joking. He apologizes for the lapse and throws them out of the window. Late that night, the storm picks up, but Vera is woken up by the retro TV when it comes on again by itself. As she prepares to turn it off, the video of Nico setting up the camcorder starts to play. She checks to find that there is no tape inside and goes to turn it off, But lightning strikes the house, causing Nico in 1989 to see Vera, who's 25 years in the future. They both check the camera and are startled that they can talk and see each other. Vera uses it as an opportunity to warn the young lad of the events that led to his death. She shows him the news articles from her phone to try and convince him. Vera even informs him that his school will be closed the next day because of the lightning strike hitting the school clock. Nico understandably gets spooked out and runs away, while she shouts for him not to go outside. The TV flashes in Vera's room before things black out. All of a sudden, the scene switches to Nico running out of Prieto's house, but this time, he's not pursued or hit by the car. With the events altered, Clara calls the following day to inform Nico's mother that she's not well, so her brother Roman will take the kids to school. Nico alerts her about what happened the previous night while she was at work. In the present, Vera wakes up confused as she lies in a hospital bed. A nurse notifies her that they are waiting for her, so she nervously enters the operation theater. To add to her already confused state, she's presented with the patient she assisted with the previous day. The nurse addresses her as Dr. Vera, while informing her that the patient laying before them is hers. She gets spooked and rushes out. The lady goes to her daughter's school and asks one of the kids about her daughter, but the girl has no knowledge of her. The mother tries to talk to one of the teachers, but they don't recognize her or recall her daughter ever going to that school. Vera frantically makes her way to David's office, and he too doesn't know her. She starts to get upset, revealing to him that they have a daughter together, to his confusion. The police are called, and she's taken to the station where she explains the crazy situation to Inspector Larira. The inspector is interested in the last thing she remembers before things changed, so she recounts the situation with Nico and how she tried to save him. After hearing Vera out, he reveals that their records show that she doesn't live where she stated. She is not married to David, and also there is no birth certificate for her daughter. There are no photos of her anywhere, including on Vera's phone. This life she speaks of only exists in her mind. Larira takes Vera to her hospital where they scan her brain for abnormalities, but everything is clear. After this, her colleague gives her a file on David, who happens to be the first patient she operated on leading a surgical team. Although she agrees that he did have the procedure, she didn't operate on him as that's not her job. Her colleague shows her office to her with all her achievements on the wall, proving that she's not only a doctor but the best in the hospital. But he gives a possible explanation for what he thinks is a manic episode. She lost a young female patient on the operation table just recently, and he feels like the trauma has caused her to weave a story with her first and last patient as a coping mechanism. Everything starts to click when her attention is drawn to the window as the thunder from the upcoming storm strikes. She rushes out while informing Larira that the storm has something to do with these strange occurrences. Maybe she saved Nico, and that is what caused everything to change. So she rushes off in her car to find out if he's dead or alive. Meanwhile, back in the 80s, Nico gets to school and also gets freaked out to see that what Vera told him was true. Ramon returns them to Clara's house, where Nico looks out to Prietol's house and asks Aitor if he believes in time travel. The young lad later sits in his room drawing a picture of Vera when his TV comes on again. It's not clear, but someone can be seen on the other side. Nico calls, but the connection suddenly cuts. He looks out of his window to see Roman giving Prieto plane tickets and a passport. Later that day, he sees Prieto leaving his house and decides to ring the doorbell to see if anyone else is home. When he gets no response, he makes his way past the barking dog and breaks into the house. He wanders around and checks the bathroom to find Hilda's dead body in the tub. He remembers Roman giving Prieto some documents, so he checks the bedroom drawer and finds a fake passport with Clara's picture, but with Hilda's name. But unbeknownst to Nico, Prieto is back from his animal processing plant, where he went to get some items to help with the body disposal. The sound of the garage door opening alerts him, so he quickly hides under the bed and finds a watch with the initials CW engraved on the back. Nico is forced to witness Prieto dismember Hilda's body, and after several hours he finally finishes. As he prepares to leave with the parts in suitcases, a call comes in from Clara, alerting him that she left her watch in his bedroom. He assures her that he will find it as he looks at her from his window. They profess their love for one another before ending the call. Nico overhears everything. Prieto checks under the bed and doesn't find anything. The boy is now hiding behind the chair. Back to the present, Vera makes her way to her house to find that it has already been broken into. She heads straight into the storage room, and to her shock, the old TV and recorder are not there. She uses a nearby computer to check if Nico died in 1989, but a book called Mirage detailing the other timeline's events comes up instead. She's confronted by Ursula, but as she tries to explain the situation to her, David enters. The two are married. She's shocked and heartbroken as he calls the police to alert them that there is an intruder in his house. The storm strikes again, which causes a power outage. She uses it as an opportunity to escape the house. As the police draw near, she hides in Prieto's backyard. When the power comes back on, she is surprised to see him out of jail and alive. He is also happily married to Clara. Because of their dark secret, the police presence scared them. Larira knocks on their door while doing a neighborhood sweep looking for Vera. Shortly after, Ader comes out to check on the commotion before heading to work. While driving, he gets startled when Vera pops out of the back seat. She explains that she knows he's a pilot, among other intimate details that only someone who knows him would be aware of. He takes her to the airport where he listens to her story of how they met on a train, among other things. Although he enjoyed the tale, he shakes her farewell as the story didn't happen. When their hands touch, she sees the events of his timeline and they didn't meet on the train that day. She starts to ask about Nico, but Ator is fed up at this point. She reveals that Prieto killed his own wife before marrying Ader's mother, but the pilot doesn't believe this accusation. His uncle Roman, who works at the passport checking station, asks his nephew if all is well after witnessing the commotion. After Ader walks away, her attention is drawn to an interview with the author of the book about the coincidences that are coming to pass. The inspector finally catches up to her. They go to a library to find the book. She shows that the story in there is real, and the woman from the future is herself. Credit is even given to Nico for inspiring the story, as the author heard it from his mother. They visit the author, and she claims that the story was completely made up by the boy, so she referred them to a psychiatric specialist. But since the author is also a professor of physics, she postulates that things can be restored if the same conditions can be met. Vera sets a timer for how long the storm is going to last and pleads for Larira's help to find Nico, but he can't get the search warrant without solid proof. Vera remembers that Prieto confessed to where he was planning on hiding the body in her timeline, so she informs the inspector of the location. They check and find the suitcase with the bones of the dead body inside. The forensic examination needs to be done to identify the person. Till then, Vera is also considered a suspect to her surprise. She breaks down in the car because of the lack of help. Larira feels for her, so he gives her a hotel address with a room number where she could find some answers. Vera makes her way there to find David and her colleague Monica having a good time. She notices the matches on the table as the same ones she found in his pants at her timeline, meaning he was probably cheating on her there too. She looks past it and blackmails him to find Nico's new address. In the interim, the police arrest Prieto, Clara, and Roman while they celebrate Prieto's birthday. The events of Hilda's death start to play. She caught Prieto and Claire having an affair. The wife got enraged and tried to kill them with a knife, but as the three of them fought for the knife, Hilda was stabbed by accident. Using Roman's connections in the airport, they forged the passport so that Clara could travel as Hilda to create the story that Hilda left Prieto for her ex-boyfriend in Berlin when the wall fell. Larira presents the evidence and explains how Nico's accusations of Prieto committing the murder were dismissed because he was found to have broken into the house to steal the watch. The young lad's case wasn't helped by his unbelievable story about the woman from the future. He was forced to apologize and hand the watch back, but his description of the engraved initials on the watch is what ties Clara to the scene. Larira explains that Nico moved away and became obsessed with proving that he was right, but all he could do was wait for the woman from the future to come back and give him the final pieces of the puzzle. During that time, he underwent tests that proved he was not lying, but he was still sent to a psychiatric hospital for his claims. There he stayed quiet till he was released. But he remembers the train station sign at the back of the room during his first encounter with Vera, so he went to the station every day. A time lapse of Nico growing reveals that he's Larira. In the present time, Vera goes to the address of Nico's place and is surprised to find that it's Larira, and she married him in this timeline. Her meeting him at the train station instead of Ator is what changed the timeline so much. Nico's mom instructs her to wait for her son. He joins her shortly after and explains the altercation in events to her. He kept silent because he was hoping that she would remember their life together, along with her past life. He broke into the house and took his old TV and camcorder. The inspector kisses her, which triggers her to remember her life with Nico in this timeline. With tears in her eyes, she still wants her old life. Vera forces him to rewrite this back to the way things were by jumping off the building and falling to her death. Nico quickly runs to check on his wife before connecting the TV and camcorder. The storm is still going on, so he manages to get into contact with his younger self and explains the situation to him and what to do to rectify everything. Vera wakes up next to her husband and her daughter back in her life. She checks for the old TV and camcorder. and they are not there. She happily hugs her husband, but remembers about the matches, so she goes outside and finds them. She asks David where he got them, and he lies that it's from his recent business trip. Yeah, right, he was handling a different kind of business. They are interrupted when Prieto and Claire wave them good morning. She is happy that Nico kept his promise. Vera rushes to where Prieto hid the body. She digs it up and calls the police. She waits for Nico to come to the scene where she introduces herself smiling. Although he doesn't recognize her, Vera promises him that he will soon enough. That brings the movie to an end.